Hello, and thanks for coming along to And We Have an Office Dog, the digital agency podcast where we talk to agency owner-directors and learn more about what makes them tick. From the things that make them similar to the things they'd rather have known sooner, where they've had success and where they've learned some hard lessons. All will be revealed with your host, Chris Simmons, the agency coach, and he'll be talking to a different awesome agency person in each episode, asking them 4 questions and seeing where the conversation takes us over the next 25 minutes. Okay, so let us begin. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, voiceover guy. I've got Kevin from Re with me today. Kevin's the CEO of Re. How long have you been running Re, Kevin?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So I've been running Re since, it's almost a trick question. I'd say 2012, but I started an agency in 2006. So quite a while. 10 years as Re.
10 years as Re. Give us a plug. Tell us all about Re. What do you do best, and why should everyone want to buy from you if they're not an agency owner and listening to this because it's famous?
Yeah, so we're a strategy-led SEO agency, and we've built up our experience kind of over that time and work with kind of startups through to enterprise brands, but yeah, very much kind of working in terms of basically driving ROI for our clients. So yeah, I feel like for us, it's trying to see the business side of SEO as much as possible and generate meaningful results, and that's helped us to build a strong reputation and a really good team and client base.
I mean, you definitely do have a strong reputation in the industry, that's for sure. And I think obviously that goes to say the same for clients. It's interesting, isn't it, that the strategy-led stuff often in digital marketing is mostly focused on a digital strategy, and you mentioned business-led, and I think that might be something that makes a big difference. Do you agree, or?
Yeah, absolutely. And I expect you probably have maybe come across these at sometimes, but there's a popular podcast called Two Bobs, and David Baker from there quite often talks about you have a strategy room number 1, and the delivery room number 2. And that really kind of struck a chord with me, because his way of looking at that thing is basically you can only enter room number 2 through room number 1. And I think quite often as an agency, you end up just doing the room 2 stuff, and then you don't do the thinking. And for us, it's very much actually we want to be accountable for the targets. We want to work together with you on that as a client, and kind of help to shape what success and KPIs look like. And then if you can do that, then it's obviously you need to apply the execution behind it too, but it's very much a combination of those 2 approaches. Otherwise, in my experience, that's where it's quite often, I'm sure there's examples where you can collaborate well and maybe separate those 2 things, but in my experience, being in control of both of them just takes the risk out of it a bit more. There's more accountability, and that's where we get our strongest results from, for sure.
I think a strong word there is accountability, and that pulls through all the way if you help build that strategy up, doesn't it? So, first question then. So, what do you feel has been one of the biggest successes over the last 10 years of running Re?
Honestly, it's bounce back ability. it's being able. We've had quite a journey. I've had quite a personal journey in terms of like different ups and downs, and I think being able to enjoy the good times for sure. And I think looking back, certainly at times I've kind of been, okay, we've won a new client, we've won an award, etc. All of the stuff that you should celebrate. I probably haven't celebrated enough. I think looking back, it's kind of, I've probably seen that as that's part of the job. Let's just go and do the next one. And I think actually giving yourself some credit, celebrating as a team is really important. But I think equally, not getting too carried away, but equally when it goes badly, being able to say, okay, well, everything's temporary. The success is temporary. The negatives and the failures are temporary, and we can turn a corner, and we're not going to get ourselves too down and defeatist about this. And I've always been very good under pressure, to the point that I'm useless if I don't have a deadline.
Oh, right, okay. One of those who do it at midnight before you have to hand in your homework.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've got a bit better now. I'm kind of like 11:30. So,
and it's only taken 10 years.
But yeah, I do think really it's kind of, we've had to go backwards at different times in order to go forwards. So we've had to learn the hard way, and I feel like you can take in as much theory as you like, but it's very much kind of like, until you make mistakes, you don't really learn from them properly. And over 10, 15 years, there's a lot of mistakes there. So hopefully there's a lot of learnings that have come out of it as well. So yeah, I do think being able to maybe pick yourself up off the floor at times has been something that I wouldn't encourage that you have to do that. And in any of those situations, I've always tried to do what I thought was the right thing at the time, but nothing always goes to plan. And I think just being able to react to it and kind of keep your chin up a little bit in some ways and say, okay, let's go again and let's learn from it, let's build from it, and go from there.
So a strong focus on resilience and lessons that you can learn makes a lot of sense.
Oh, we're definitely stronger for it, absolutely. So yeah, I think that's the thing, and I think a lot of our success has come from our failures. I don't see success and failure being polar opposites. I see failure as being part of why we're successful.
Yeah, well, it's only a failure if you learn from it. If you don't learn from it, you're a bit thick.
Exactly.
You know, if you keep making the same mistakes over and over again, then naturally you won't have gotten 10 years into running Resignal, and you know, you can't see Kevin right now, but I can. He's smiling gleefully at his 10 years of successes.
But to be honest, it means more as well, because if it was all easy, then it's like you're playing a computer game with a cheat code on, sort of thing. It's like, actually, no, for us, it's like we've gone through those hard learnings, and we, for wherever we are right now, and again, I won't take anything for granted, but I know we've earned certain things. I know in certain phases we've got lucky in terms of certain things as well. So equally, I'm not saying like everything that we've done everything we touch turns to gold. It's quite often could be the opposite, but it's I think just keeping that positive attitude and mindset at times where it's not always that easy to do so has definitely helped to pay off. And at times where we may have given up and gone on to other things, I'm actually really glad that we stuck it out. We got through some of the hard times, and we've been able to share some better experiences, certainly of late, because of that.
Awesome. And I think that one, like you say, taking the knocks and the wins, the challenges combined in that. Some of the wins were hard work, I suspect, but the best way to kind of maximise any performance in an agency is to have lots of growth and lots of change. And change keeps people interested, and interested people do work, and they work hard, and they do good things for people that they like working for. So, good work.
Yeah, exactly.
However, the next question though is sort of kind of converse to this, I'm afraid. If you were to go back 10 years or so and look at the younger, probably more sprightly version of Kevin, and give him any kind of advice, what would you give yourself?
So there's a couple of things that I would say on this, and actually the first thing is I want to touch upon something that you just said in terms of having lots of ideas. I've embraced my own role of being that kind of visionary. I have the 25 ideas a day, which I think is important to innovate and grow and improve. If you execute on 25 ideas a day, you're all over the place, and I know that. I've done it. And I think actually surrounding yourself with people who have strengths where your weaknesses are has really helped to even that out. So we've implemented, I wouldn't say 100% of like the traction, get a grip, EOS style model, but we've definitely adopted a large part of that. We've promoted Hannah Butcher in our team to MD, and that very much is between myself and Hannah, a visionary integrator style role where Hannah can tell me, actually, no, Kevin, those ideas are a waste of time, but this one might be gold. And equally, it could work the other way around. But I think just having someone that can say no to you, but also help you when the ideas are there, what are the ones that you should go for, I think has been really good, because quite often like to think at least I've had some good ideas over the years, but probably haven't quite had the level of follow through to make it happen. And I think surrounding yourselves with people that can be behind you, back it, and help you run with it is really important. Equally, telling you when, no, this is a bad idea, let's not go down that direction is good as well, because I've seen all too well sometimes you can have ideas that you think are great in your own head, and you might end up wasting a lot of time. So yeah, I think having that team set up has been a really big thing that we've only done over the last probably 6 months. If I'd have done that 12 years ago, I think we might be in a different place right now, to be honest. So yeah, so, I think that's potentially one of the big things.
So that piece of advice is either definitely don't have 25 ideas a day, because that's good, but have someone there to help make sure that some of them that are the good ones can be implemented. Yeah. And I think there's an argument to have one good idea. You might need 100 ideas. It's just how do you pick out the ones that you go for. So I'm not saying stop thinking and coming out with ideas. The other side to your question is, I think I've just learned a lot more about how to manage life. But I really liked the honesty from Nicola's podcast that you did recently, and I think there's a lot of things she spoke about, even getting therapy and understanding actually how to manage your own emotions at a time where times can be really stressful. You have to make hard decisions. You might have to make cutbacks which affect people's lives, stuff that's really difficult when it's your own company. And I think just being able to take yourself, just look at things and actually, Nicola mentioned this, put your own air mask on first in order to help others. And I think quite often in the past, I've worked, burnt out, gone on holiday, recovered, come back again to a point that is not healthy. And I think I've got a lot better now at saying, okay, I'm going to rest and recover every day, not every 3 months. That's part of my almost like routine and how I operate in order to be at my best, rather than being in that kind of like all or nothing situation. It's never easy working in an agency of any size, from 3 staff to 3,000 staff. There are different problems, but they're usually relatively built around the same sort of thing. And having the mindset of being able to be a bit resilient to things that happen is hard. You can be as resilient as you like, but it's kind of like the ocean crashing on the rocks. Eventually something wears away. So having a break every 3 months is probably the advice there. Don't have it every 3 months. Have a little bit of one every day.
Well, yeah, and so I mean, some people probably think I'm crazy for this, but one thing I've done since I think it's November the 11th, 2020, is I've walked 10,000 steps every day. For the reason that some of it's fitness and physical, but it's mostly mental. Of actually, that's my headspace. That's where I can walk with a podcast, or maybe just not at all, and just have my own thoughts. And that to me is essential. If I don't have it's an hour a day to do that sort of thing, then I feel like I'm definitely getting stressed. And for me, managing that, I think, is just really important, and just working through it is not the answer. Certainly in my case.
So going back to the question, I guess in this sense, would the advice be that you've learned this now and you should do that now, younger Kevin, or don't worry, younger Kevin, work really hard because eventually you'll work it all out?
No, I think in the past I maybe tried to just work as hard as possible towards a potential end game and not appreciate kind of what I had at the time. And I think actually now I want to enjoy my life from now moving forward. I don't want that to be in 5 years' time. And you know what it's like. A lot of agencies will speak about, we have a 3-year plan and then everything's going to be amazing. And it's like, well, it was a 3-year plan 2 years ago. And like the problem is that keeps getting extended. And I think you need to find a way that you can say, I love where I am right now. I'm enjoying it. There may still be a future plan. That's absolutely fine. But it shouldn't be let's put everything into this. And there's a lot of sacrifices that you can and I have made, I would say. And I had a business mentor I worked with last year, and he got me to score, but firstly classify what I saw as the 7 most important areas of my life, and then score them. And that was just quite eye-opening in terms of, okay, well, maybe there's some things here I've neglected, and maybe there's some things that I need to focus on in order to have a bit more balance in my life. And I actually think in doing that and putting the effort into that, the business has been better for it, because we've got a senior leadership team. I'm not always the bottleneck. So yeah.
Exactly. And it sounds silly to say it like this, but and it isn't flippant at all when I say it, that you should dashboard your life as well as dashboard your business. You should have benchmarks. You should know what a minimum level of expectancy should be for you personally. And if that's 10,000 steps a day and a bit of you time, then that's really important. If it's walking the dog, it's important. There's whatever that might be. If it's 10,000 steps walking the dog, you're in the golden zone. That's fantastic. But having an awareness of what's the thing that's important to you personally can also drive the vision and the purpose for the business, can't it? Because if it doesn't fit those personal aims and personal needs, then what's the point?
Yeah, that is and it's like I do this with our clients and our team quite a lot. Is I will ask, so what about what are we doing? Why are we, that's strategy. Yeah. So why don't you apply that to your life and say, actually, if you're working 18-hour days and you're building an amazing business, etc., so what? Yeah. And there's more to it. That might be an important part of it, but it's not all of it.
Yeah, I've had this conversation a few times in the last couple of months with some agency owners where the so what and then what don't get asked often enough, and that kind of should apply both in personal life but in every sort of thinking of every waking moment of your day. Sounds a bit hard and tiring to do that, but eventually you work it out. But why am I doing this? Oh, I'm doing it so that this. And why am I doing it? For that reason. Yep. Am I doing it for personal gain, professional gain? How is it fitting into the thing? And then once I've done it, then what? Is that done? Is that the end? I've done my 10,000 steps. Now I have to sit at my desk for another 15 hours, or now I've done my 10,000 steps. Haven't had many emails during that 10,000 steps. I'll tackle them tomorrow. That's equally fine.
Yeah, but I do think there's a lot in actually finding your purpose and understanding what is it that really matters, that's bigger than yourself and bigger than your company, and that's what can then really motivate you to do something. Certainly if you feel like you're giving back in a way that contributes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, in a way that's meaningful.
So is there something that you kind of regret, or I guess wish you'd done differently, or maybe sooner over the last 10 or so years? Is there something that you've learned like really hard way that has set you up for the future success?
Yeah, I think some of it is that balance, and it's that, like I say, there's sacrifices in terms of business that you may give up in terms of the personal side. I think equally having, like I say, that vision, that purpose. We've gone through a process as a team to create our vision last year, and I think that was a big turning point as well. Previously, it's kind of been, okay, Kevin is that ideas person, let's just go away and do what Kevin says, and that only takes us so far. And I found quite often I've been the bottleneck that is burning out for that reason, that this is my plan and I hire some people to execute it. That's not that motivating to them.
Suddenly no ideas come and there's lots of willing people, but nothing.
Exactly.
I think I think having the right team is vital, obviously, as a leader. Especially when if you know where your limits are. You might be a really good implementer, so you need to hire a visionary instead, and vice versa. But having people who can apply decent layers of critical thinking in an agency it's worth more than 10 senior technical SEO execs, because of the quality of the thinking that can be done. And quite a lot of digital agency work these days, I hope you'll agree, and maybe you can, if you don't, tell me, that quite a lot of the work these days is a lot more thinking and a lot less doing. You might think for hours around the solution to something, and then it's like 3 clicks and you've sorted it. Well, 3 clicks times several thousand pages, but
Exactly, and I think at a certain scale, you can't do that yourself. I've probably got away with it up until, say, like the 1 million revenue mark. I feel like you probably can get away with that being yourself. But I think in order to go beyond that, that's where, okay, we need a team approach. We need and kind of to empower the team. And my role has become less of the doer and more of the coach. How do I help people get the best ideas out of themselves, and then help support them, hold them to account a little bit in terms of what are we doing and bringing it together. But it's everyone then has their key areas of the business that they're moving forward, and it's not always coming back to Kevin, can you do this now? And it's just a list that piles up. So, I think trying to. I did a Cranfield uni course, and they teach a concept called passing the monkey. If everyone comes to you with the monkey, which is their problem, and the trick is you don't need to take that monkey and add it to your list of things to do. You need to pass it back to them and say, okay, this is what I would do in your situation, or have you thought about this, or even better, what do you think? And I think that for me has been the big, I don't know if I say regret, but certainly the learning that if I could do that and go back, it's probably that combination of have the right vision that's built with the team, and then empower them in the way that it's our team's plan that we take forward. And then on, like I say, in the kind of work-life balance side, I feel like that's easier because you not everything is on your head. It's a team effort. So
you've given yourself a bit of bandwidth to think about yourself. Quite right. And you've mentioned bringing Hannah in up to the MD level. How was it that you came to the decision for her in particular? Is it that you've worked together for a long time and it was just a natural evolution, or is there something specific there?
We hadn't worked together that long. I think it was probably about 6 months. She joined in a head of SEO role. We ran a series of strategy workshops to create our vision, reset our values, and build a business plan. And once we got to the how do we deliver the business plan phase, we realised there's a big gap in terms of it. And this is very much attraction language, but it's kind of like we had me that's the visionary, but kind of doing the integrator role, which is why I was probably burning out in a lot of ways and kind of have done over the years, where it gets too much. And operationally, we can manage the business, but there is that kind of glue in between of the integrator that really kind of makes that happen. And for us, we identified a need for that. We looked at the strengths and weaknesses, and I think the traction model for that is gets it, wants it, has the capability to do it. And I think for us it then became clear that actually Hannah's a really good fit for this, and that's where we decided, okay, well, let's move forward. And I think we found our integrator. So
that's brilliant.
An MD.
I mean, you're using all the exact right words, and having seen and heard about all the results, they clearly work. So the things that us wanky coaches say all the time seem to be relatively suitable. But you've got to get it right, haven't you? You've got to do the doing. It's not just about writing a plan, putting it on paper, and leaving it there.
It is, and I think actually this is where having a coach can really help to be that mirror that you don't see.
Are you advertising coaches?
but yeah,
keep going.
But certainly from my perspective of sometimes you're too close to things, and I've actually I'm in I know you do this as well, kind of like a agency mastermind group, and it's useful to come and say, this is my challenge right now, what would you do in this situation? And it's so much easier to help other people with their problems and sometimes look at your own.
And in those situations, those masterminds, I used to do them a few years ago when I was running an agency as well, and it is amazing how much you can learn about you and your agency when you're going through the constructive process of solving someone else's problems. You can come away from those sorts of sessions and kind of go, my God, that thing I was talking to Dave or Mary about that we've solved in a hot seat style thing, that's something that I didn't know was a problem for me, and now I'm going to try and apply it as well. And it's just they're so helpful. There's also the group therapy style aspect of it as well, where you come away and you realise actually we are kind of all in it together, and this is us. We're all fine.
Yeah, Yeah, no, it is, and I did a 1 week course on leading professional services companies at Harvard, which was generally geared around law firms, accountancy, and we had a afternoon session, and one of the cases was around the split of Anderson of when it became Accenture, and it was really interesting because at the time I'd went through kind of like the blue glass US situation, which I probably won't go into full detail. We'll be here for about 4 hours, but essentially,
it's a short podcast, Kevin.
Essentially, we were left in a kind of a brand name issue, and actually understanding how that was addressed for a similar situation on a much bigger scale, and then having a group of peers that were lawyers and legal partners to say, what would you do, in a way that they know nothing about the industry, but they completely get business. And that's when I decided, okay, we need to rebrand to Resignal, because otherwise this is, right now it's okay, but further down the line, if you look 10 years ahead, that's quite a complicated mess that you need to find a way out of. So I think having those peers, that's really helped me to shine a light or make things more urgent than I would have realised or acted upon.
Well, again, it's that that group mindset that helps listening as well, because no one's getting away with anything by bullshitting. So you get what you contribute in these sorts of sessions, and I think that I think you're right that the advice that these guys who weren't in your sector were giving is all absolutely still relevant, because they've seen the same problems in other places, and it's still a business. It's not, a digital agency isn't some sort of weird unicorn that doesn't have the applicable rules as everything else. So to draw to a close, if any aspiring agency owners are listening to this podcast now, what is it that you would give them as like your one golden nugget piece of advice that they could take away?
I think finding a niche has been really important, and just knowing what it is that you're good at. I think some agencies quite often, to a certain extent, we may have made mistakes going this way as well. We were a strong agency in Oxfordshire in the early days, and I think we then saw that as an opportunity to add different services in, because we could sell to those companies, and then we ended up being good at everything, not necessarily great at anything. And it wasn't really until we went back to the core passion and our biggest strength in SEO that we really started to win the Expedia-sized clients. And I think that's kind of like one of the step change deals for us. And I think once we started to really double down on SEO and say, okay, well, this is what we're great at, let's do that. Equally, I think sectors as well, as quite often this is quite a hard thing to think as an entrepreneur, that I'm going to rule out working with 90% of the companies out there because I want to focus on e-commerce or travel or SaaS or something like that. But equally, how many clients do you want? Because right now we have about 12 clients, and I would say that's our sweet spot. We don't necessarily want to have more than that, but we can do that at a 2 million or so run rate and be pretty happy with where we are. So I think if you think about it, if you need 12 clients, it's probably easier to win 12 clients if you're super focused and well positioned than it is to try and pick up everything from everywhere.
Yeah, you're spot on. I think that's great advice. I don't know if you know David Gilroy. He's a future guest on the podcast. They've niched into the legal sector, and they only work with lawyers. And when you start thinking about how many lawyers there are, that sounds really tasty. But at the same time, you don't want to be working with people who compete with each other. So part of their thing is we don't work with certain lawyers that compete in a certain sphere of influence, whether that's a radius or whether that's a small sector or something specific like that. So then you then think, oh no, you're cutting away so many leads here, and actually you then count up how many lawyers are left and you realise there's still quite a few.
That's it.
So there's nothing wrong with that, but I think being a specialist in a delivery of service as well is vital. If you know the jack of all, master of none style thing, it does often ring true in service bases rather than physical delivery of stuff. I think you've got there, you've got it right by the sounds of things.
Yeah, and I think that's where clients will look for a specialist and maybe pay more of a premium because you've got that specialist skill set. And ultimately, it's about results for us. If we've got a team that's geared around how do we provide the best SEO results and keep innovating and strengthening that as one service offering. Certainly, as a small team, it feels more sensible as opposed to how do we kind of spread ourselves maybe a bit too thin.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Kevin, for joining today. I hope you've enjoyed the chat. I certainly have.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. And in the next episode, we'll have another fantastic digital agency, awesome human being. Never going to reveal who they are, just in case they change at the last minute. I know how agencies work. And I look forward to seeing you all shortly. Thanks very much.